Everyone, good morning. Bom dia para a comunidade portuguesa que nos ouve. This is the panel around environment in 30 minutes. My name is Lígia da Fonseca. I work for the International Association, Air Transport Association, that you know as IATA. I will have the pleasure to have here in this panel with me the CEO of SATA Air Azores, Luís Rodrigues, that I would ask to join me on stage, and also Kevin Moer from the Copenhagen Airport. He will join me for this discussion around environment. Welcome, gentlemen, to this lively discussion around environment. So, as I said, I have with me Luís Rodrigues. Luís is SATA's CEO, and he's former CFO of TAP Air Portugal. I also have Kevin with us from the Copenhagen Airport. He's the communications advisor for the Copenhagen Airport, and he's involved in a project with the airlines and the airports that is focused on sustainability, and we would like to hear a bit more about this project from Kevin. Let me start first here with Luís, and I would like to launch a video for you to see. It's an official SATA video that then I would like Luís to comment, please.
Welcome aboard Azores Airlines. It's an honor having you on board our Airbus A321neo. Our airline flies towards the future with an efficient, environmentally friendly aircraft designed to better your flight experience. We take the Azores to the world and the world to the Azores. An outstanding archipelago with breathtaking sceneries. We know the Azores and its wonders as no one else. Azores Airlines wishes you a pleasant flight.
So, we have many messages here. For instance, the renewal of the fleet, using a fleet that is more modern and more efficient. This is one evident sign that the airline is concerned with environment. Of course, besides knowing that the Azores, it's a great destination for tourism, Luís, tell me more about your concerns as SATA CEO, and how can you find this fine balance between promoting tourism and having more people flying into the Azores, but on the other hand, also having this environmental concern and wanting people to fly greener in the future?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity of being here, and congratulations to Sponsor. The first thing that I need to say is, it's so good to be here in person talking not about COVID.
No doubt.
We are getting out of it. Fortunately, SATA is definitely getting out of it. We are flying 90% of our passengers back in 2019. So off to discussing new, very important items. The political correct answer to your question is it's very difficult to find that balance. But the right answer is it's very easy. For a very simple reason. You saw the pictures of the Azores. It's not acceptable not to fly the most environmental friendly airplanes there.
Yeah.
Is there an effort to it? Is there a cost to it? Yes, there is. But then if you have your priorities right and they are communicated properly across the organization, it's a very easy discussion. We better have whatever manageable higher costs in the short term for acquiring new aircraft than losing revenue from passengers not being satisfied with old aircraft, non-environmental friendly. And today we see this trend going up more and more, and we definitely need to be in line with what the region wants to stand for and what the consumer wants to stand for. So making the effort, whatever effort needs to be taken to find new efficient aircraft, it's the one thing that we need to do.
Yes, and it's something that is across all the stakeholders. So, for instance, Kevin, I will also show you a video that I want you to comment on. Please.
Allied project is a Horizon 2020 program from the European Union. It consists of 16 different partners aiming to make smart climate solutions for the aviation sector. And we have two goals in this project. One is targeting sustainable aviation fuels for mainly used in aircrafts, and one is smart energy mainly used for airports. Smart energy in our sense is to use the energy right, but also get a carbon neutral energy. So that could be from solar panels, all the equipment, all the ground support equipment as we call it. We aim for that at Copenhagen to be emission-free in 2030. So to be emission-free, we have to phase out all diesel, all fossil fuels, and have that run by, for the most cases, electricity. So the smart energy will come in handy to support us in that. The Lighthouse project that's running in Copenhagen airports is aimed to create solutions for airports in other climates as well. And that's a reason for us to also have airports from Southern Europe. We have Rome, Fiumicino Airport as partner. We also have a partner in the Baltic region, that's Vilnius Airport. And then we have a master planning company in Poland who is creating a totally brand new airport there. So we think the consortium of airports is excellent. The main problem is of course climate change, and we have to interact with that. We have to create solution for our part to the climate change challenge. With this project, we can pave some of the road. We cannot make all the solutions, but we can help us in the industry, not only airports, but also our aviation partners, SAS Airlines, to showcase how can you make the transition to SAF, the sustainable aviation fuels, or at airports, how can you make the transition to energy-friendly vehicles using the smart energy in a smart way. I'm very proud that we actually take responsibility.
This is super ambitious, this project here. And I must make the disclaimer, IATA is participating also in this project, and I'm participating also in the project. That's how I know Kevin. So I know firsthand that this is a very ambitious project. Help us go through the project. What are the aims of the project, and how easy it is, in your mind, to set Copenhagen Airport as the light of the end of the tunnel and the trendsetter for the other airports, at least in Europe?
First and foremost, thank you very much for having us here today. We are very proud of this project as well. It has been like a bumpy road because it's not normal for the airport of Copenhagen to take on these European Union projects like we did here. So we have to lead the project first and foremost. That's our first time. But we actually thought that the option was so amazing and so important, and it fitted very well into our targets of reaching carbon neutral, so to speak, way of acting in the airport. Well, we cannot, of course, interfere in the airlines' way of businesses, but what we can interfere on is like what we do on the ground, how we maintain our daily basis, on the airport.
And how long will this project be, and how do you envisage, in the end, how do you feel Copenhagen Airport can position itself as a greener airport? Well,
it's something that we've actually been working on for quite a while. So it's not like that we got this project and then we decided on starting, thinking greener. It's something that we've been working on for several years in the airport, and this project is a 4 years project. And of course there are some baselines in that project where we need to find out ways that we can demonstrate to other airports, first and foremost, of course, to the fellow airports, which my splendid and very amazing colleague Jesper, who has all the technical knowledge, just explained in the video. And then afterwards, we would, of course, like to broaden out the findings to other airports in Europe or in the world who might be interested.
Very well. And then links connect perfectly what Jasper said in the video. He was talking about sustainable aviation fuels. And this is something that we know that for airlines is the future. I mean, it's the present. Let's not say that it's the future, because it's something that the airlines will need to start using right away. Not only because we will have a European regulation mandating it, but because the airlines themselves, they are worried about this and they want to use sustainable aviation fuels. But besides sustainable aviation fuels, what is it there for airlines to implement? Which measures can airlines put in place today that help in this decarbonization path towards 2050?
Well, sustainable aviation fuels fuel is the #1 thing we would have to work on, but airlines are very limited in what they can do other than calling the attention to the need to develop faster the whole thing. Fuel is our biggest consumable, if you will. But that's still a little bit far away. I was in a meeting a few days ago with the CEO of Lufthansa, and he mentioned that if Lufthansa were to fly sustainable aviation fuel today, they would spend the entire world amount in one afternoon. That's how far we still are from getting there. But we just can't sit down and wait for it to develop, because it will take a long time. So there's a lot of operational procedures we can do every day in the airport, working with the airport itself, working with the ground handlers, working in our own infrastructure. Small incremental steps, then together they will change the amount of carbon we send into the atmosphere, definitely. There's also ideally we would have CSAR implemented. It's there, it's for grabs, it's a quick win, if you will. It would take 10% of the emissions so far, but apparently politicians all over Europe are having a difficult time in coming to an agreement. But the industry would appreciate that, and the environment would appreciate quite clearly.
No doubt.
So we work every day with airports as partners and with our people, and to make small things, turning the engine earlier off, turning the engine on, working with one engine, replacing the ground service equipment for electrical vehicles, all that kind of stuff. The important thing is take small steps, and cumulatively they will get to some big thing at some point in time. But of course, asking the suppliers to develop sustainable aviation fuels as quickly as possible, provided that safety always comes first, but that's not in question.
Yes, and this is something that we also see with airports, that every bit, every effort we put in place towards environment, towards saving emissions, not emitting, it's something that works little by little. We don't have one solution that solves it all. What else are you doing at the Copenhagen airport besides A-Light? Which other projects are you either implementing right now or envisaging to implement in the future that will help towards this commitment?
Well, we're doing several things, to be honest, but first and foremost, our main task is to work together with our government and, of course, the European Union and the subsidiaries. But for us right now, we have been making this big collaboration with other huge companies. I mentioned that to you on the phone. It's like companies like Maersk, which I suppose is quite well famous for their shipping enterprises, and a lot of other different Danish companies, including the Scandinavian airline systems and so on. While we sort of made together with like our largest power company a project which we of course need the government to fund in some way, to try to create an option to actually make the sustainable air fuel in a quantum which make it possible on a longer term for all the airlines to benefit from. Because right now we know that we don't have sustainable air fuel enough for all these operations that might be necessary. And that's the reason why you would have, if you would like to buy it, you would have to pay 3 or 4 times the price of regular fuel. And of course, that won't work. So we need to work together, and we need to push onto, of course, our governments first and foremost, and other potential investors who might be interested in this, as we see it, a possible adventure for Denmark, being a leader in these things, so that we might, like we did with windmills back in the days, perhaps we could make another export adventure, as we used to call it in Denmark.
But this particular project, it has two streams. On the one hand, to promote the usage of sustainable aviation fuels, SAF, but on the other hand, also to promote greener ground support for the aircraft. So how does it combine with this project, working the two streams, and how this also combines with the work that you wanted to implement with the power plant that you mentioned to me before? How does this all combine? How do the pieces of the puzzle come together?
Well, I think actually that everything fits very well together, like the small Lego bricks that you as well know as a Danish thing. We've tried to think it as like one big picture, where we know that there are several sort of players in the game, and we need to sort out the best possible way for everybody. Because without the airlines, there wouldn't be any airports. And without passengers, there wouldn't be airlines, there wouldn't all be airports. And then we would go back to ride on a horse again. And I don't think that a global world is able to do that. But still, on the other hand, we have, of course, all these climate-thinking people. Greta Thunberg is one of them, telling us to be a bit ashamed of flying and all these things. And I think, like you said before, Luís, that if we take it step by step and try to go slowly, but in a secure way towards the target, instead of just snapping the fingers and saying, okay, we can make something right now and then everything is settled, because it won't work like that. But in my opinion, we need to tell the world that our, so to speak, struggles in the airline industry isn't just done with a snap with our fingers. We need to work together, and that's why I think a thing like this, where we are able to discuss it in a more broad way, is very good.
And in a constructive way. But we're missing here also one piece of the puzzle, if I can say, which is the legislator, the rulemaking, the policymaker. So if you would address now the policymakers or the governments in the world, what kind of support you as an airline CEO would ask in terms of support from the government, from the governmental officials?
Wow.
Without putting in you too much distress?
No, I mean, looking back to the recent past, I think we have all shown that closing borders was actually not accountable for improving the COVID situation. I think that's gone. So the bottom line is, if we can fly freely, that would probably be the only thing we'd be asking for. Because I think all the key stakeholders of this ecosystem, airlines, airports, jet fuel, whatever, airplane manufacturers, we can engage, and associations like IATA and ERA, we can engage in constructive, productive talks to move the industry forward in a sustainable way. I don't think we need that much government regulation and supervision, all that kind of burden, administrative burden.
What do we need from governments?
Sorry?
What do we need from governments on this pathway to sustainability?
Let us fly, let us talk freely, and let's build into constructive relationships. I don't think we need anything else. I mean, we've had the help from governments in financial assistance when it was needed the most. We're trying to give it back as quickly as possible, and we are showing we can get along very well and move forward in an industry that needs to be said. It is not the main responsible for environmental bad performance, if you will. There are other industries, and we're not here to name them, that cause a lot more harm to the environment that are not being held accountable for that. We suffer from a misperception that we do a lot of damage, and in reality we only account for 2 to 3% of the whole thing. It's 2 to 3% too much, but it will be addressed. But there are others that need to do the work much stronger and much faster than we do.
That is a very powerful message. And there is plenty of times a misperception, as you were saying, that aviation is accountable for 50% or 80% of the CO2 emissions, which is not true. Aviation is only accountable for 2 to 3% of the worldwide CO2 emissions. And of course, we need to work on the 2 and 3%, but we also need to address the other 97 or 8%, because they also contribute to this, and this is a global objective. So I will go back now to you, Kevin, asking you the same question. What would we ask to governments in terms of support or guidance, or do we need more regulation, less regulation, financial support? What do you think?
Well, we actually did something as well. We tried to do something as well in Denmark, because what we did was that we have like sort of an advisory board, which consists of the airlines and of the airports, obviously, and then a lot of other players around the airline industry. And we were asked to give some kind of recommendations to our government concerning them making a climate strategy. So they made like different, not only within climate, but within several things, but this was one of them. And at that point, we said to them, well, I didn't, but my colleagues who works with this said to them, well, couldn't we just start up sort of a climate foundation so that every passenger who arrives from a Danish, or departs, sorry, from a Danish airport should pay something similar to, I don't know, 4 or 5 euros put in the ticket price, and then of course somebody should administrate that. But what was important for us was that all the money collected by this foundation should be used on the green transition and not on anything else, not on lowering taxes, not on schools, not on hospitals, but on the green transition. So we've been working quite hard for that, and right now, actually, a few days ago in the Danish Parliament, this issue was discussed as well, because the politicians back home hasn't really made up their mind yet as what they would like. Some of them would of course like to put on some extra taxes on the flight tickets, but some of them want to spend this money on things that has nothing to do with the airline industry. And that is a problem, because if that happens, then I can't see how the airline industry should be able to sort of fund the green transition, because it's not an option.
Well, the good thing, at least, is the Danish government didn't take a position. Ours took, and it was against the airlines, but and made no sense. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah. So this is also the perfect hook to invite you all to see the previous panel we had on carbon charges, and if they indeed help or even demote aviation and the development aviation. So it's a good hook for you to go and check that panel too. And so finally, my question would be, let's say on the cooperative side between airlines and airports, what do airlines need from airports, and then what do airports need from the airlines in terms of cooperation with this environmental mindset that connects us and that drives us to work together?
The quick answer is lower charges, but then the more sophisticated answer is we need cooperation, which I think we have had, and transparency. We're all in this together. I mean, if the airports fail, the airlines will fail. If the airlines will fail, the airports will fail. So we're very much dependent on each other. So if we can have, again, and reinforce that, and I think in Portugal we are in somehow a good position right now, because Ana Vancy is promoting that discussion as well, and is open to discuss it as well, which is a very good thing. If we can have transparency and willingness to cooperate, I think we can all make it very quickly. No problem.
Very good. And from the airport's perspective?
But I agree about the step-by-step, and I agree about the collaboration and the working together. But we have to remember one thing, and that is that the airline industry has been changed radically by this aim for the green transition. So you could say that it's a game changer, where the airlines around the world has to almost build up from scratch to find out how can we make the business in the same way that we did before, so to speak. And furthermore, we now have the COVID crisis, which is bigger anywhere else than in Denmark, but still, I think it's important that the government and the people who decides has to understand that we need this in a global world to be able to be transported. For me, it was 3 hours and half an hour from Copenhagen to Lisbon. Yeah. If I should take that in a car, it would take me a day, perhaps. So we need to think that there are several ways that makes the airlines necessary to sort of keep up with the level of the world that we are having today. And of course, we as airports should, of course, as far as it's possible, sort of support the airlines as much as possible.
I think this is a wonderful message to wrap up our panel. I would like to personally, institutionally, thank you both for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this panel and that you continue to enjoy Portugal Air Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.